Hey folks, thanks for coming back and joining me for another lesson. Today's going to be the fourth installment of the perspective lesson on 1, 2, and 3 point perspective. So I did myself the courtesy today of drawing up the lesson beforehand so that I'm not stumbling over my words while I try to correctly draw the examples for you. And I'm really looking forward to showing you what I have for you today. So without any further ado, let's jump into today's lesson, which is going to demonstrate 3 examples for 1 and 2 and 3 point perspective. Okie dokie. So we'll start with our first lesson here. And just let me set it up here. If we go directly from our 1 point perspective tutorial last week, you will remember how to draw from 1 point on the horizon line a series of frayed lines in order to create depth in negative space, in which you will construct and illustrate a box out of. Okay. So this first example is exactly what the area right here says, which is it's an eye level perspective using 1 point perspective. Alright, in the background here you can probably see that's my horizon line. Okay, and then right here X marks the spot. That's where my vanishing point is in that particular that's where my vanishing point is in this particular view. We have our box here. Note it's dipping just below the horizon line, and you can always change this when you're doing your own compositions. Okay, and you have your box, right? If I was to if I was to knock back everything, you have your shape there, right? We understand all that. But as you can see, I haven't drawn it exactly flat on the horizon line. I've kept it just off a little bit. So if we were to potentially frame this, okay, you could imagine if this was a building or something in the foreground that you want to showcase, that this horizontal line in the background would actually represent where the ground meets the sky, miles and miles and miles off in the distance. Okay, but from that particular perspective, you're going to get that look. And I took the liberty of framing all of these. You'll notice for every single example, these frames, okay, they are focused in on the object in an interesting way. And again, our vanishing point is outside of the frame or the page, okay? And our focal point for this eye level viewpoint in 1 point perspective is pretty much, it's about quarters and a half of the way up the page, okay? Not completely center, but generally in an eye level composition you want to keep your horizontal line pretty center of your page or panel, okay? So I'm going to take these frames away and just get to my next example here. Which is going to be the worm's eye view, alright? So in this circumstance, your horizontal line is pretty low, alright? Wherever you're going to keep it in the panel, in the page, in the composition, it's going to be pretty low, and that is how you're going to give the feeling that this object is above you and that you're looking up to it in some instance, okay? You can see the box there, how I've drawn it into perspective. And if I add the frame, again, I keep the vanishing point out of the frame. You have your object there. We can see underneath it. And this is helping us to showcase our subject matter in a clear, concise way from a worm's eye view, okay? That's why we call it worm's eye view. Alright, I'm going to take away those frames again. We'll go over to the last example here of 1-point perspective. In this case, your horizontal line, okay, is going to be a lot higher in the frame or on the page, and that's going to allow you to draw a vanishing point and create the look of something being beneath you, okay? So you're looking down at the subject. Alright? Pretty simple stuff, right? We're just taking that rectangular box, we're looking at it as if it was right in front of us somehow. We can only see two sides of it. If we lift it up, we can see the front of it, we can see the side of it, we can see the bottom of it, and the exact polar opposite of that. If we put it down, we can see the top and the sides and the front of it. Alright? That should give you an idea of just how to play around with the perspectives. And again, before I jump ahead, if we were to put a frame around this, okay, and like I did with the first example, say this is where the this is where the sky meets the ground, and let's say this is a shopping mall, okay? You've got a very interesting perspective on this shopping mall, and you can build all the way around it, you know, using 1-point perspective. And your vanishing point is outside of the page and panel again, right? Now, one thing I just wanted to note before I jump into the examples for 2-point perspective, a reminder and a reiteration of what I taught you in the last lessons, 1 and 2-point perspective, okay? In these cases, how I'm drawing this rectangular box in all these perspectives, remember, our vertical lines are going straight up and down. That's where I'm getting those lines. That's where I'm getting my vertical lines from, a straight up and down. And all my horizontal lines are running parallel with the horizontal line that I've chosen and the angle I've chosen it at, okay? And the only things that are bending are the horizontal lines that are receding in space, okay? And that's the exact same for every single one of these examples. I'm pretty sure that looks pretty evident, right? Anyway, get into the second point here. I guess I'll just kind of keep the frames on there. You can see the examples. As long as I'm able to draw over top, I'll use blue. Really stands out. So, 2-point perspective, as you may remember from the lesson I left up there for you. We've got a horizon line again, right? We've got a point here and a point here from which lines are fraying out and giving the illusion of space, right? We know all this. We've got our box there. And that's an eye level shot in 2-point perspective, okay? We're basically standing right in front of this thing, you know? If we were to draw our head in here, it'd be like this, you know? And we'd be standing just like so, looking at this thing, okay? Eye level. And Now, in 2-point perspective, we have the fraying lines as opposed to lines that just go straight across that follow the horizontal line. Remember that? I just mentioned it. So if you were to draw in your background line here, where the sky meets the ground, you know, it starts looking like maybe we're in a desert. It looks like we're in the desert looking at a rectangular monolith standing there amidst the barren wasteland. This second example here, same idea, right? All I've done in this instance, and you can see how I framed it. Yeah, get a little closer on it. You can see how I framed it. My horizontal line, it's at the bottom, right? For my worm's eye view. So now I'm a little bug on the ground, I'm a rock on the ground, I'm in the grass. I'm looking up. And I mean, there's just so much you can do with this perspective angle. It's endless, and I want you to start trying to spot this stuff everywhere, right? So again, all my vertical lines are going straight up and down, just like in the first one. I've got my fraying lines back to my vanishing points. We're going over this and over this and over this, guys, until it's drilled in your head. Right? And the emphasis of this point perspective, 2-point, in a worm's eye view, alright, is to stress that we are looking up at something, whether we can see underneath it or not. That's why I drew those perforated lines going all the way down into space, vertically here. There, there, and there, and there. Sorry. There, 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 and there. Okay? Because this can just keep going down. And it doesn't change the perspective. We're still looking up at it. Because why? Because we dropped the horizon line so low. Okay, so remember, the horizon line is going to be your friend in how you construct a lot of these perspective grids and compositions. Okay, so worm's eye view. All right. This is our last example in 2-point perspective, which is the bird's eye view. So the polar opposite, instead of looking up at something, we're looking down at it. You can see how it's constructed. I've got my horizontal line. I've got my perspective vanishing points there. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, we've constructed our box. Boom. Boom. Right? All those lines go back to those 2 points. Again, like the first 2 examples in 2-point perspective, all of these horizontal lines, they're going straight up and down. Alright, and like I made an example in the last one here, I can bring this line all the way up, right? So, and like, you know, this is where the sun, excuse me, and this is where the sky meets the ground, somewhere in the background. This is more of an apartment building than a, you know, liquor store. But you get the idea, right? You get the idea. You're shifting the perspective in interesting ways. You know, now, depending on what you're drawing, you're going to choose that right focal point, right? But it's got to look interesting. And you got to have these vanishing points outside of your frame, always. Okay? Anyway, I think you get 2-point perspective now. Those 3 examples, eye level, worm's eye, and bird's eye. Eye, worm, bird. They should all make perfect sense to you now, right? In 1 and 2-point perspective. Alright, we're going to do the exact same thing now, just using 3-point perspective. Okay? So let's get in on it. 3-point perspective. I made one example here, and I'm going to show you another one here in just a second because it's pretty crucial that you understand it. So the eye level view in 3-point perspective, in most cases, alright, you're going to want to do it this way, where, excuse me, you're going to want to do it this way to give your object the most natural looking form. If you're going to use 3-point perspective from this view, which is eye level, all right, you're going to want to favor a higher 3-point perspective vanishing point, all right, like I've done here. 1 point, your 2nd point, your 3rd point, your horizon line, okay? And those 3 points right there are going to form that box, all right? And that way, drawing it this way, our vertical lines are now tapering up how they would go, up and away from us, which anything we know at this point, right, after 3 points already, we know goes further and further away from us, hence it gets smaller and smaller. So those vertical lines, they're now stretching up to that 3rd point. Let's go back a bit. Just to reiterate, my 3rd point of perspective, I drew right from the center of my horizontal line in this circumstance, okay, which is almost dead center between my 2 vanishing points, okay? So, you're looking at our object there. And if I take away the frame for a second, you know, in the grid, you see it kind of has a better look to it overall, the way it sits there. Now, you don't need to use it. You could do this exact same perspective of this monolithic cube, hypothetically in a deserted playground, and you could use 2-point perspective and it would work fine. You could use 1-point perspective, and if you pick the angle right, it would work just fine. This is all your own creative flair at this point. It's just important to know how all 3 of these things work. Here is the bad example I wanted to give you. So using the same principle, you would not want to do this and use the 3rd perspective point stemming from below. Otherwise, it just creates, to me, what looks like a gigantic, you know, KFC box for your chicken to go in. You know, where it's not perfectly square, and each side essentially gets a little bigger at the top, where what's at the bottom is a smaller shape than what's at the top. Right? Anyway, so don't do that. Do like I said before, and use this example, where you draw your point from above. Okay? Let's go on to the next one. So, what you're looking at here, again, is our horizontal line, 1 point, 2 point, and our 3rd point coming from above, just like the last panel essentially. But in this case, it's a worm's eye view. And why is it a worm's eye view? Do we know yet? It's the frame. I pulled the frame around our horizontal line way at the bottom of the canvas, way at the bottom of the page, way at the bottom of the panel, okay? So whatever I draw above it, instantly we're looking above. Sorry, we're looking up to it. Hence the worm's eye view, okay? And as you can see there, I've illustrated those lines with the arrows going up, up, up to that 3rd point. And again, that 3rd point stemmed from a spot that's pretty well dead center between point 1 and point 2 on the horizon line, okay? And there you have it. You're looking up at an object, very similar to how it looked in 2-point perspective, but what's happening now, our vertical lines are tapering up to the 3rd point, alright? And don't forget, that's why I drew it in purple here with the frame, where your sky meets the ground is where you would put a line to indicate. Does that make sense, everybody? Last example. It's the polar opposite, right? Now we're looking down at our subject. So what happens in a circumstance like that? Well, you know it. We're just framing the horizon line at the top, okay? We're keeping our 1 point and 2 point perspective outside of the frame, right? And again, my third point stemming from pretty much center between those 2 points to give the best look at my object. And now you can see we're walking up to this object. It's on the ground in front of us. Alright? Or we're up in a helicopter looking down at a building, right? Like, it's whatever you want it to be. You can worry about scale and everything later on. I'm going to make videos for all of these things. For now, if you can just understand how to push these shapes around in 3D space, know that you're looking down at it, know that you're looking up at it, convince yourself. Because if you can convince yourself, you can convince your audience, okay? And remember, the bird's eye view, the worm's eye view, it really just centers around, you know, where you're leading your eye, you know? In a bird's eye view, you'd be looking down. In a worm's eye view, you'd be looking up. You have your examples, my friends. I hope today's lesson wasn't too convoluted with my jargon and jibber jabber, but I firmly believe that those 3 lessons right there are more than enough for you to take in, get the information you need to start playing with this stuff on your own. And most importantly, go to your comic books and go to your good illustration references and look for these examples wherever you can find them. If you want to trace over them and prove that this artist used 1 point perspective versus 2, do it. Look for the subtleties. Look for the cheating. Look for everything, you know? Anyway, too much talk. I got to get back to work. I hope you all have a great day. I really appreciate you stopping by. Give that subscribe button a click. Make sure you like and comment on the video. Now that I have comments available, sorry about that before. Didn't realize I had the comments turned off. It's all the age it's all of the age restriction stuff that YouTube needs you to approve for them. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. Be back soon with another lesson.